That feeling of being trapped in an infinite loop of drama with someone who just wants everything their way. There's the narcissist. And look, keeping in touch with these people is like letting an emotional vampire suck you in. But guess what? You have the power to turn this game around. And the most powerful weapon is the famous no contact, cutting off communication completely. Now, think with me, if the narcissist loses control, he goes crazy. Not because he misses you, sorry to break the magic, but because he loses that fuel that he loves. And then, my friend, the horror show begins for them. How the narcissist reacts to no contact. When you disappear from a narcissist's radar, it's like they suddenly lose Wi-Fi. It breaks. And, of course, they will try every trick in the book, from rage attacks to that soap opera victim move. Julie L. Hall, in her book, The Narcissist in Your Life, describes this perfectly. The narcissist needs validation, attention, constant supply. So when you cut that off, they're going to run to find another source real quick. It could be a new relationship, it could be the neighborhood, even the family dog comes on the radar. And this cycle, if you let it, will continue forever. Unless you're smart and just get out. The importance of standing firmly on no contact, but don't think they're going to leave you alone that easily. They'll send you messages, show up out of nowhere where you go, even invent crazy excuses to look for you. This is all a game to suck you back in. But do you know the trick? Hold on tight and remember why you cut off contact. Hall talks about idealization, devaluation, and discarding. When you stick to no contact, you break this crazy cycle for good. Imagine being outside a house on fire and someone trying to pull you inside. It doesn't make sense, right? So, the next time you feel that temptation to respond, remember, your peace is worth much more. The path to recovery and reconstruction beauty, you have cut the narcissist out of your life. But now, what comes next? Now comes the good part, comes you. Yes, yourself. After so long living in someone else's shadow, it's time to shine with your own light. In Healing from Hidden Abuse, Shannon Thomas talks about exactly this. The first step to healing from psychological abuse is recognizing that it existed. And believe me, this part is a little scary. After all, your identity may have gotten a little lost along the way. But think about it, now you have a blank page to start a new story. And look, the protagonist this time is you. Creating new habits and support networks now, the burning question, how to rebuild. Calmly and with small, baby-like steps. One at a time. First tip, surround yourself with people who truly support you, friends, family, therapists, or even a good support group. People who help you remember who you really are. Second, start creating new habits that feed your soul. You know that book, Will I Ever Be Free of You, from Carol McBride? It's a great starting point. Include some self-care, meditation, or a hobby you've always wanted to try. Small changes that, when you least expect it, become an anchor of security and sanity. Redefining your narrative and regaining control. Let's agree on one thing, rebuilding is not just healing, it's reinventing yourself. It's taking all that baggage you carried and turning it into something valuable. Thomas sees no contact as more than an escape strategy, it is an assertion of power. It's you saying, no more being manipulated. And that's liberating, right? Every day without drama is a victory, every smile without reason is a cry for freedom. So, start rewriting your narrative, day by day. Because at the end of the day, this is your story, not the narcissist's. And you have every right to give her a happy ending. Facing inner demons, there's something no one tells you, staying in touch is not easy. Suddenly, the silence that was supposed to be a blessing starts to feel like a burden. The mind is treacherous, my friend. She starts sending those messages like, has he changed, or maybe I'm being too harsh. Then you know, the hole starts to be dug. It's natural to miss, especially when you've been conditioned to depend on that chaos to feel anything. But pay attention, this is your emotional state being manipulated by the remnants of the abuse. Shannon Thomas, remember her? She says that the longing is not for the narcissist himself, but for the promise of love that was never delivered. And that's a huge trick of the mind. Creating structures of internal resistance. What to do when this crazy longing appears? Well, it's time to arm your emotional defense system. Think of it like a battlefield. You need allies, ammunition, and a good escape plan. Start by writing down your thoughts. You know that old diary? It may seem like a teenager thing, but it's very therapeutic. When you put on paper everything you've been through and the reasons why you cut off contact, it becomes much easier not to be tempted to go back. Another thing, have an emotional emergency kit nearby, friends who pull you back to reality, books that reinforce your new path. Remember, The Covert Passive-Aggressive Narcissist, by Debbie Mirza, and self-care practices that center you. Every time you feel homesick, ask yourself, do I really want to go back to that chaos or move forward with my peace? Finding joy in little things. When you step away from a toxic relationship, your body and mind go into recovery mode. This means that simple things, like a sunny afternoon or a hot coffee, start to have a different taste, a taste of freedom. But for that, you need to allow it. It's time to rediscover the joy in the little things that were there all along. Take part in activities that you have always enjoyed, but that the narcissist somehow made you feel guilty for enjoying. Dance to that cheesy song in the middle of the room, laugh out loud at a silly meme. It may seem small, but these small doses of joy build a powerful shield against the desire to go back. In the end, life is made up of these moments that, alone, seem like nothing, but together, they build your new story. The process of rediscovering identity. So, you have made it through the storm and are now standing on safe ground. But calm down, don't rush. The next step is to look in the mirror and ask, who am I now? When you live under the shadow of a narcissist for so long, your identity often becomes somewhat diluted. In Becoming the Narcissist's Nightmare, Shahida Arabi talks a lot about this, the importance of giving yourself time to discover who you really are, without the toxic influence. This is not about reinventing yourself overnight, but about allowing every little piece of yourself, that was dormant or repressed, to begin to appear. Building a new version of yourself. This is the time to start rebuilding yourself. It may seem like a huge challenge at first, but think about how exciting it is to be able to shape yourself again, as if you were painting a new canvas. Reflect on the things you've always liked, but perhaps left aside. Always wanted to learn to play an instrument? Go there and do it. Have you always dreamed of traveling to a specific place? Start planning. The most important thing is to realize that you no longer need to walk with anyone's shadow by your side. Now, you can walk lightly, without fear of being who you are. And seriously, there is nothing more beautiful than someone who allows themselves to be exactly who they are. Facing fears and creating new expectations. Of course, not everything is rosy. There's that fear, deep down, that sometimes shows up. What if I fall into the same trap again? The good news is that with scars comes wisdom. You now have a sharper radar to identify people who are not aligned with your new version. Instead of shutting down and letting fear guide your choices, use it as a superpower. Turn your experiences into a compass that takes you to a place of self-love, authenticity, and courage. And so, little by little, you begin to create new life expectations, based on respect, empathy, and true reciprocity. Because now, you know what you deserve, and, more importantly, what you don't deserve. The value of saying no. Do you know that feeling of freedom when you start to say no without weighing your conscience? Well, this is one of the greatest achievements of anyone who decides to cut off contact with a narcissist. Suddenly, you realize that you can and should set limits. And it's not because you've become a selfish person, it's because you've learned, often the hard way, that your peace is worth more than pleasing those who just want to manipulate you. As mentioned in The Narcissist in Your Life, by Julie L. Hall, narcissists love to test boundaries. So, no going back. Saying no is not just a word, it is an act of self-love. And this is how you begin to build the fortress that protects your mind and emotions. Identifying and setting clear boundaries. Look, setting boundaries is like building a fence around your garden. It's not to keep out the world, but to protect what you've worked so hard to cultivate. Now, how to do this in practice? First, identify what makes you uncomfortable. You know those innocent jokes that diminish you? Or those favors they always ask you for? Well, start cutting. In The Covert Passive-Aggressive Narcissist, Debbie Mirza talks about the importance of creating these protective barriers. When you say enough to something that no longer serves you, you make room for what really matters. And more, you teach the world how you want and deserve to be treated. Maintaining boundaries without guilt. But let's be honest, setting boundaries isn't always well received. Often, the other person's reaction will be to try to make you feel guilty. They may call you insensitive, cold, selfish. And guess what? Their problem. That says more about them than it does about you. You are here to live in peace, not to carry the emotional baggage of someone who doesn't care about your mental health. Always remember, those who truly love you will respect your borders. Anyone who doesn't respect you doesn't deserve to be part of your life. And you know what's more beautiful? Little by little, you start to attract people who are on the same vibe as you, people who respect you, who support you, and who, most importantly, don't need you to exhaust yourself to make them feel good. The art of rebuilding trust in yourself. After leaving a relationship with a narcissist, you may feel that trusting again is almost impossible. But here's a simple truth: trust, before being external, needs to be internal. In Will I Ever Be Free of You, by Carol McBride, she talks about the importance of first trusting yourself before you can trust others. And how do you do that? Start by recognizing your own intuitions. They have guided you before and they will guide you now. Sometimes it may seem like your radar is broken, but the truth is that it is just recalibrating. And that's okay. Take as long as you need to rediscover that inner confidence. Connecting with new people, the fear and hope. The part about opening up to new relationships can be a mix of fear and excitement. After all, you just got out of a storm and no one wants to risk another one. The trick here is to proceed cautiously, but with an open heart. Evaluate people by their actions, not just their words. Pay attention to those small signs of empathy, respect, and reciprocity. It could be someone who calls you just to see if you got home safely or who respects your space without pressuring you. It is in these small gestures that you will begin to realize the value of a true connection. And make no mistake, healthy relationships are not without their problems, but the difference is that you won't feel like you're walking through a minefield at every step. Building relationships based on truth and vulnerability. Have you ever noticed that the strongest relationships are those where we can be who we really are? After a toxic relationship where everything was about control and manipulation, you deserve something genuine. Building new connections where truth, vulnerability, and empathy are the foundation is one of the most powerful forms of healing. Shahida Arabi, in Becoming the Narcissist's Nightmare, reinforces the importance of being authentic. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable and show your scars, it gives you the chance to attract people who will not only respect those scars, but also admire your courage in having them. It's that type of relationship where support is mutual, respect is given, and love is built on the basis of truth. Start over without fear of failure. After years of being diminished by someone who made you believe that you weren't enough, it's natural that your self-esteem took a hit. And that's okay, because that's part of the process of getting back on your feet. But you know what? It's time to change the lens. Instead of seeing the world from the distorted perspective of those who tried to bring you down, start seeing it with your own eyes. Self-esteem is not about feeling perfect all the time, it's about accepting your imperfections and learning to love them. Julie L. Hall, in The Narcissist in Your Life, reinforces that, to rebuild self-esteem, you need to deconstruct the lies that the narcissist made you believe. And the best way to do this? Start by allowing yourself to make mistakes without carrying the weight of judgment. After all, growing up is a series of small stumbles until you hit the ground running. Celebrating small victories and building big achievements. Do you know what we often forget to do? Celebrate the small victories. The problem is that we are always waiting for that big moment, that wow, in life, and we end up missing the small daily achievements that really matter. Have you managed to go an entire day without thinking about your toxic past? Celebrate. Did you say no to something that wasn't good for you? Celebrate too. Every small step you take away from the narcissist's influence is a giant step toward your own emotional freedom. Shannon Thomas mentions in Healing from Hidden Abuse that these accumulated victories have transformative power. They reinforce that you are in control now. It's not about going from low self-esteem to total confidence overnight, but about building, step by step, your new version of yourself. Embracing the journey of personal growth. The truth is that self-esteem is strengthened when we stop comparing ourselves to others and start comparing ourselves to who we were yesterday. And then, my friend, you begin to understand that the journey is yours, and not anyone else's. Every day is a new opportunity to be a little better, to accept yourself a little more. And it's okay to have bad days, it's part of the package. The important thing is not to let these days define you. Shahida Arabi, in Becoming the Narcissist's Nightmare, talks a lot about this. The process of getting back on your feet and getting stronger is not linear, but is always progressive. So the next time you find yourself criticizing yourself, stop and think, today I did the best I could, and tomorrow I'll try again. This is true freedom. Looking inward to rediscover who you are. Shall we agree on something? It is often easier to blame others, to blame circumstances, than to look within. But if there's one thing that no contact teaches, it's that true healing starts from the inside out. After leaving a toxic relationship, you find yourself at a point where you need to start asking yourself difficult questions. Who am I without this person in my life? What do I really want? In Healing from Hidden Abuse, Shannon Thomas explains that self-awareness is the key to breaking cycles of toxic relationships. So, take some time for yourself, without rushing. Meditate, write, talk to people you trust. This is like a trip back home, to your true essence. Exploring new versions of yourself. What if you allowed yourself to be a little different than you always were? This is the beauty of self-knowledge. By giving yourself the space and time to get to know yourself again, you open doors to new possibilities of being. Maybe before you saw yourself as shy or insecure, but now, without the chains of a relationship pulling you down, you begin to explore a bolder, more confident version of yourself. As Shahida Arabi mentions, the healing process involves allowing yourself to discover new facets of your personality, new tastes, and new passions. Do you want to try that theater course? Go there. Do you want to change careers? Why not? Self-knowledge gives you the freedom to reinvent yourself as many times as necessary. Using the past as a guide, not as a prison. There is a phrase that says that the past should be a springboard, not an anchor. And nothing could be truer when it comes to self-knowledge and healing. What you went through with the narcissist may have left deep scars, but those scars are not signs of weakness, they are marks of strength, of survival. Debbie Mirza, in The Covert Passive-Aggressive Narcissist, talks about the importance of looking at the past wisely. Not to relive the pain, but to understand what got you there and, more importantly, how you can prevent it from happening again. Every lesson learned, every mistake made, is a reference point on your personal growth map. And, over time, you begin to see that by knowing your patterns and triggers, you can better choose your future paths. Because, at the end of the day, knowing yourself is the greatest act of love you can have.